I gotta say, you have some guts looking for info on Mazon Labs, buddy. Lacking in brains, maybe, but definitely got some guts. Normally, I would advise you against diving deep into this corporation, but I can see you're determined, and I'm not one to say no to an extra bit of cash. So, as per your wish, and your confirmed credit transfer, I'll give you some info about the corporation you also unwisely decided to face off against. Before we start with Mazon Labs, you should know there's only one subsidiary of one big daddy corporation, Maison Holdings, one of the oldest corporations in the GCPS. It was one of the first to spread out from Earth to the stars, growing large enough to own entire continents and even planets over the centuries. And in that time, it diversified its portfolio into some of the most important parts of GCPS society. Maison Media, which is best known for broadcasting high-profile Dreadball and Overdrive games. Maison Tech, which handles high-tech weaponry and cybernetics, and perhaps most important to the rich corporate a-holes that control our society, Maison Life, which is focused on extending human life expectancy, as long as you can afford the exorbitant fees. But the one subsidiary that most say has the potential to cause the greatest harm is sadly the one most regular people have the most positive feelings towards, Mazon Labs. You've probably seen their ads, a bunch of happy scientists in pristine labs with plastered-on smiles. Their motto, "For a Better Galaxy," splayed with horrendous font across the screen. As fake as those ads are, the Corp does do some good work. Their grav sickness medication is crucial for anyone who frequently travels between new worlds, and the various diseases they've cured over the centuries have saved billions of lives. But if you dig a little deeper, you begin to learn that those cures came with a price. Let's take the Red Planet flu for example, a horrendous disease proudly cured by Mazon Labs. But if you look at the evidence leaked onto RebNet, you realize the price for such salvation. Cavalax 3 was a world with an indigenous race that, at the time, no corporation had any interest in exploiting, so no one objected when Mazon Labs scientists went to that world and began their experiments. They unleashed the Red Planet flu on the population, and then monitored it from the safety of their shuttles. In the end, the species was all but wiped out, but the galaxy got its life-saving cure. When rumors started going around about how the corporation got its cure, Mazon Labs CEO Artemis Connor immediately denied it, claiming they simply tried and sadly failed to save those unfortunate aliens. An excuse that sadly worked. The other corporations, of course, turned a blind eye, caring more about profit margins than genocide. As for the regular citizens, they were just happy the horrible disease that the news media has been blasting the screens about was no longer a concern. There was one group, however, who wished to expose the real evils of this corporation, the Rebs. Those freedom fighters, or terrorists depending on who you talk to, wanted to take down that corporation, and they had an unlikely ally, in the form of the corporation Biomed Industrial. Now don't think Biomed did this for an altruistic reason. They were simply bitter rivals of Mazon Labs, and constantly accused Mazon Labs of sending spies to steal their research, which, knowing Mazon Labs, they probably did. Biomed simply saw working with the Rebs as a way to not only take down a rival, but hopefully take their place. As the Rebs dug deep into research on the happenings within Mazon Labs, they began to notice something strange. There were occasionally small plague outbreaks on worlds where there were no signs of artifacts, monoliths, or plague fleets. Outbreaks that were quickly put down by Mazon Lab forces, who seemed to coincidentally have research facilities on those same worlds. To really find out what was going on, they had to sneak into a Mazon Labs facility and see what sort of horrible things were going on in there. A task that was easier said than done, as the forces protecting those facilities were formidable. First, you got the Urbana Black Rangers, both security and military force. These are the elite troops of the corporation, with the best weapons and armor the corporation can buy. Don't make the mistake of thinking of them as regular GCPS infantry with fancier gear. These guys are experienced soldiers who are paid top dollar, so they are loyal, deadly, and absolutely ruthless. They also got some non-human help, TAC drones to allow for some automated heavy fire, and provide remote reconnaissance on missions, but also alien beings known as the Krastovor, strange, cybernetic extra-dimensional arachnids that Mazon Labs somehow have under their control. Despite all these obstacles, a Reb team was able to sneak into a facility, and what they found was horrifying. Lab techs working on gene sequencers, while mutilated bodies laid on gurneys. Grimy cells of plague victims howling and throwing themselves against blood-stained neodymium-reinforced glass, and shambling figures with raw and weeping flesh around cybernetics, who seemed to wander around aimlessly. The infiltrating Reb team sadly weren't able to escape the facility alive, but they were able to transmit all this evidence to their fellow Rebs, who in turn sent it out to Biomed to expose it to the world. The response wasn't as expected. Artemis Connor dismissed the video as a complete fabrication by Reb sympathizers that were working with Biomed, and who wanted to disrupt Maison's key research for the betterment of humanity. The corporate-owned media put their sole focus on Biomed and its links to the terrorist Rebs network. As for regular folks, as always, a nice dose of propaganda and comfort was enough to not let them think too much about the real horrors of the galaxy they lived in. The only organization that was really hurt was Biomed. Its share price collapsed overnight, and before its board could rally back, Biomed became the latest victim of the fickle corporate markets, and was financially torn apart. Meanwhile, Mazon Labs slunk back into the shadows to carry on its research undisturbed, probably taking bits of Biomed with them after that corporate feeding frenzy. Since then, much has been discovered by the Rebs about Mazon Labs and their operations. The Rebs still aiming to take them down, somehow. Let's start at the top. Those in senior management who work right below the public-facing Artemis Connor. They lead various facilities on worlds across the galaxy, and specialize in various forms of research. For example, there is Commander Graves and the supposed insane genius Dr. Coiner, in charge of a facility on the surface of the planet Eris. They are often seen in dead zones across the galaxy, risking the lives of their troops to collect samples for their research. They are also often accompanied by the Organics Data Unit, which is a rather impolite way to call a Shovar, an alien race who are essentially telepathic jellyfish, capable of outstanding computational feats. Whether this Shovar is controlled by the two through some nefarious means, or is working with them willingly, I couldn't tell you. Now remember those shambling corpses with cybernetics plastered on them I mentioned previously? Those are products produced by the disgraced bioscientist Ronaldo Abominava. Disgraced for doing things even members of corporate boards couldn't stomach. But those things weren't horrible enough for Mazon Labs to not take an interest, giving him the resources he needs to do whatever he wants. Which in this case, is reanimating the dead, giving those who died nobly for the corporation's bottom line another chance to serve. His reanimation division crafting cybernetic implants in these resurrected bodies to bypass the subject's emotions and moral codes, which turns them into ruthless, mindless soldiers. But the dead aren't the only rather unethical weapon at their disposal. There is also the Plague, the corporation looking for ways to use this deadly pathogen to their advantage. Research that surprisingly had some success, probably due to the corporation bringing on Dr. Gail Simmons to their team, a human woman that during an outbreak on Nexus Psi became infected with the Plague, but somehow kept her sentience, keeping her sense of self, despite becoming what is essentially a ghoul. The sentience seemed to have also come with the ability to apparently control other Plague victims. Well, that's Mazon Labs in all its greedy and horrible glory, although I probably only touched some of the horrors this corporation has produced. I'm sure that we will see more horrors come to life, as they produce more things that probably shouldn't exist in this galaxy. I wish you luck facing them, buddy, and I hope you're careful, because if you aren't, you might find yourself one more shambling corpse among its ranks. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this vid on Mazon Labs and the Warpath Universe. Evil mad scientists who are spreading horrors across the galaxy. If you like this vid, please like, subscribe, comment, etc. so that YouTube gods know I exist and hopefully more people see my content. If you're really inclined and have the cash and, are inclined, I already said that part, please send a little money away to my Patreon or my Coffee account. The extra money gives you a chance to work on these stories that I love. Anyway, thanks for listening / watching, and see you next time.